This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
Today on CityCast Philly, it's the Wednesday Politics Show. I'm at City Hall and sitting down with at-large Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. We discuss new legislation, like one that could lower your wage taxes, and how her career in politics started at just 15 years old. It's Wednesday, March 5th. I'm Trinae Nari, and here's what Philly's talking about. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, you've been working in City Hall for over a decade, and you represent the entire city as an at-large council member. You were also recently elected as the youngest Black woman to serve as a majority leader. Break that down for the folks who hear that term, majority leader, but don't really know exactly what it means. What does your leadership role look like as a majority leader?
Sure, and I think a lot of folks don't understand sort of the structure. And so it's 17 members of Philadelphia City Council. 10 are district, meaning they represent a certain area of about 160,000 people, give or take, on either side. And then 7 members are what you call at-large, meaning we represent the entire city of Philadelphia. And of those 7, the charter states that 2 must be of a minority party. It doesn't say which one. And so I'm one of the 5 in the majority as serving the city at large. And then our leadership structure is we have a council president, and then we have a majority leader, and then a majority whip, and then the deputy whip, and then we have a minority leader, a minority whip, and I'm majority leader. And so that means that I represent the interests of 13 other colleagues, 14 including myself, but really working with all of my colleagues, right? I don't, bifurcate. I work with everyone so that we can get the work done of the council.
It sounds like with your experience over these years, there's a lot of relationship building. And you were the council member who purchased the book Inner Excellence, Jim Murphy's book that a lot of Philadelphians were reading over the last few weeks because of our Eagles player, A.J. Brown. Why was that important for you? And then I recently saw that in one of the last council sessions, you purchased platters from Chubby Chicks, which is a Center City business that recently expressed, experiencing some harassment since being in her location in Center City. She came from New Jersey, but you went on the mic and you said, check your offices. I got y'all some platters. You purchased these books. Why is that important for you?
So I will tell you that I think that's who I am intrinsically. I've always been that way. I love giving to others. I think it has to be a ministry in some kind of way because I've always loved to do it. I've worked really hard here for 26 years to be a good person and show my colleagues and just my teammates that it's important that we work together to do the work of the people. I do that because it's just who I am. And the book Inner Excellence, when I saw A.J. Brown reading it, because I've been following the Eagles very, very closely.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I don't know if you could tell from my office, but I love the Eagles.
Yes, there's a Jalen Hurts poster.
There's a Jalen Hurts poster. There's another Jalen Hurts, a little graphic that I received from someone. I love the Eagles. I always have. Love Jalen Hurts and all the players on the Eagles. But when I saw A.J. Brown reading Inner Excellence, I said, I have to get that for all of my colleagues because we had just come through a tough legislative process and a tough legislative season. And I felt it would be little nuggets in the book that can help give us strength as we move forward in this work. It's not an easy job. And I remember my mentor, former Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown, used to say, it's the unforgiving world of electoral government and politics is a thankless job, but we have to do it because we have to be there for the least of these.
To be fair, you've seen it all. What frustrates you about city government?
I would say making sure it works most efficiently for people. Sometimes things can, take time. And I recognize that not only as a mom, my kids are in public school. My oldest graduated from public school. Some things can take time, but I think just improving the efficiency and transparency of government is something that I would continue to work towards because it can be frustrating at times.
You talked about it being kind of a tough last year legislatively. There was a lot of hearings about the 76ers arena. What's the next steps with getting the arena in South Philly?
Right. And so we had marathon hearings about the arena, very obviously contentious issue in the city. But I will tell you that there are many times where development deals fall through. There are many times. This just happened to be one of the biggest ones that did. And obviously, the Sixers and Comcast have announced that they have a new partnership to ensure the stadium remains in South Philly along with additional development. And so how I'm looking at that is a buy one, get two free because the arena stays in South Philadelphia. We have a commitment for development on East Market Street, which I think folks learned a lot of lessons about how you engage as early as possible to ensure that you're meeting the needs and the goals of the community, and particularly the community that would be most impacted. So we get the development on East Market that is needed. Doing nothing on East Market Street is not an option. We have to do something to revitalize that important corridor for the center of our city. And then also the prospects of a WNBA team for Philadelphia, which brings another sports team here and another opportunity to uplift women in sports. And so I look at it as a buy one, get two free. And we just have to move forward with ensuring that the community has the opportunity on the front end of the project to give all the feedback necessary to make it best as possible for the city.
So does that mean like another marathon of hearings?
Oh, we'll have to. So I know the arena is, a flashpoint for a lot of people, but it's a development deal. It's something that has to come through council because you have to have legislation that addresses, the area and whatever zoning changes are needed and necessary. And like I said, not all development deals go through. And so it's a development deal. It has to come through council. We have to have a public process. We have to have public hearings. And we're going to do just that because that is our role and responsibility.
You've also been working on some legislation this year. Tell me about some of those initiatives.
Well, I'm really happy that we finally had a huge homeownership fair that coincided with some of the legislation I passed around Tangled titles. Is an issue that's really close to my heart. I lost my dad, my grandmother, and my mom while I was working here as a staffer. And thank you. And my sister and I were left with two homes that both had mortgages on them. And we needed a lot of help to resolve the issue. And from that process, I learned about an issue called Tangled titles, when you live in the home of one of your deceased loved ones. So through our MPI initiative that our former council president, Darrell Clark, brought to the table, I was able to get one of the first investments of $7.9 million to help families who are struggling with tangled titles and deeds. And we have quadrupled the amount of families that we've been able to help. I even did legislation to ensure that when families are resolving their loved one's funeral process, that they receive information from the city on how to resolve estates and prevent tangled titles. And so recently we had a homeownership fair, which brought a bunch of partners to the table to help folks who want to purchase a home in Philadelphia and or preserve the one that they have. And it was super successful. We have a lot of individuals who are now in the pipeline to home ownership. And I think that's an issue that is increasingly important in the city is housing. Even our mayor, Sherelle Parker, made a huge announcement around housing last week.
Right, 30,000
units
of affordable and maybe preserving
and
some.
preservation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so we're all working towards that goal. And helping families with tangled titles or deeds is a part of the preservation process.
And tangled titles, just for our listeners who might not be familiar with this term, is when people might be living in the home of a family member who dies, and then because their name is not on the paperwork, they're unable to inherit it and could lose their home. This is particularly a big problem in Philly.
Right. And so we're working on all type of legislation. I even did the amendment to the budget around the wage tax, which it's something. It's not, as much as everyone would like to see, but it's a nice, addition to one's check. Okay, reducing the wage tax helps to, bump up your check a bit.
Please, these eggs are expensive.
The eggs are high. I'm couponing again because of the
right?
eggs. And so, I used to be on the TV show Extreme Couponer.
Not
on the
serious.
TV show, but
the
the people on the TV show.
Okay.
That was me. I had a stockpile. It was serious. I just don't have time to coupon anymore because I'm in council. But I'm couponing again because of the eggs. And so we got to do as much as we can to help as many Philadelphians as we can.
When we come back, we'll hear about the council member's backstory and how it informs her work in council today. That's after the break.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
Watch the world's biggest tennis stars clash in the California desert at the BNP Paribas Open, live on Tennis Channel.
How do they get to these shots?
Tune in daily for exclusive first ball to last coverage from Indian Wells and witness all of the jaw-dropping action as the game's top men and women square off at one of the greatest events in sports. It's tennis magic you need to see to believe. The BNP Paribas Open, live on Tennis Channel and streaming on the Tennis Channel app.
We're sitting in your office today. You can hear the subway rolling by underneath. There's a photo of you with former council member Blondell Reynolds Brown. Tell us about why that photo is sitting at this area in your office.
Sure. Well, I met 26 years ago this year a lady by the name of, at the time, Blondell Reynolds Brown, who was just elected to Philadelphia City Council and not yet sworn in. And she had come to our mutual alma mater, the Philadelphia High School for Girls. And she came to our school to talk about her journey to politics, how she had just been elected to Philadelphia City Council, and how she was excited to begin her journey of service to Philadelphia. And I was really intrigued by her story, because she talked about her mom being a single mother of 7. Her father died when she was really young, and how her mom, as a teacher, ensured that all of her siblings went to college and they were all doing really well. And I wrote her a letter. I went home, and back then, believe it or not, because I know technology is really advanced, and of course, no one was thinking about a podcast back then. And I walked it around to her house because I knew where she lived.
Oh, wow.
I knew she lived in my community because I would see her having events at our house. I would see her very rarely outside. And so I walked the letter around to her house, and it was just my luck that on that particular day she was outside gardening. And I gave her the letter, and that started a 26-year relationship that we still enjoy today. And she wrote me a letter. She would send me cards. She would follow up with me. I would volunteer in her office, volunteer in her election.
You were an intern within City Hall, right?
Right. When I was 15, I would volunteer in her women's events, anything she was having in the community. She used to have a huge Women Making a Difference events. I would volunteer for that every year. And anything on her campaign side, whatever she had going on, it was for me. So I just love doing the work. I love volunteering. And so I went to college, and I still have the card that she gave me when I went to college. It's been water damaged a little bit, But the card says like good things happen to great people. And then she wrote a message on the inside, and I still have it. The card is over 20 years old now. And I went to college.
Westchester
University. Love Westchester. Go Rams. And I started out actually wanting to be a principal. So I was a secondary education, social studies major. And then around about my sophomore year, going into my junior year, I had a professor who, I'm not going to lie, she broke my spirit. I had her for a history class. It was on a point basis system. And I worked really, really hard in this class. And it was something about that class that the very day I went to talk to her about my disappointment with my grade, I switched majors to political science. Wow. And I wound up graduating in a year. So I graduated college in 3.5 years. And I went to graduate school back at Westchester to study public administration. And my professor in grad school, he said, listen, you are not graduating from this program unless you do an internship. So he said, do you have a place where you could intern somewhere in public administration? I said, yes. And he said, where? I said, Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown's office. He's like, do you know anybody there? I was like, yeah, I know the councilwoman. He said, okay, if you can get, the internship, it'll go towards your credit for graduating. So I came here in 2005 and 2006 as a grad intern. When I was in graduate school, I worked 3 days a week, 8 hours a day while I was finishing my graduate degree. And it was the best experience of my life. I enjoyed being here. I love helping people. I learned a lot about how city government works, how you navigate city government to make it work for you. And so upon graduation, I started working at the district, and I became a long-term substitute. I started as a substitute teacher, and then I became long-term. And I taught, and I was emergency certified, and I taught transitional math and Algebra 1 in the 9th grade Success Academy at Overbrook High School. The best experience in my career. I still have some of my babies today. And I was also working evenings, nights, and weekends at Pennsylvania Hospital, our nation's first hospital, as a unit secretary. And I worked on the orthopedics and neurosurgery floor. And I was just
did all that and then said, I'm going into politics.
Right. And so a year or so after that, the councilwoman had an opening in her office because the new administration was coming in. It was a Nutter administration in 2008. And she offered me a position in her office as a constituent services representative. And she said, listen, if you want the job, it's yours. You will have to work hard. It's not an easy role. And she said, after 3 years, I want you to leave and find something else to do in politics. But this could be your training ground. And I said, that sounds great. So I came full-time, officially, full-time on the team in 2008. And by 2010-ish, I found another job. And I remember having a conversation with her, and she said, listen, can you give me one more year? And that one more year turned into another 10 years and turned into me still being here now. And so I've had the privilege of starting as a constituent service representative, but working in every position you can hold in a council office except communications. And so I started as constituent services. I worked on special events. I was a legislative aide for 5 years, which is all the legislation, the bills, the hearings, budget, and everything in between. And then I was staff director for another couple of years, and then I ended as chief of staff. And so when the councilwoman decided not to seek reelection in 2019, I decided to run. And here we are.
Another question I wanted to talk about is something I read in the Inquirer. They talked about not a lot of bills have been passed within the last year. There's been fewer bills passed. Is council maybe less active as it once was? Could it be doing more?
I will tell you, we're focusing on quality, not quantity. It's the quality of the work that matters. It's the quality of the connection with the community. It's the quality of the constituent services work. It's the quality of the programming. It's the quality of all the legislative action that we've had to undertake in such a short amount of time. It's quality of the budget process. It's quality of we were here for 80 hours in hearings, and really being, very deliberative about, the process with the arena and ensuring there was public participation. So I think of it as quality work and not quantity, and much more to come. Each week, I heard colleagues introducing today legislation to address these smoke shops that we've been inundated with in
And
our
that's
local.
coming from Councilmember Cindy Bass in the 8th District, right?
Right. I heard legislation to address zoning matters. I heard 16 bills read out of committee from Streets and Services. So there's a lot of work happening. I know the work of my colleagues, and I know that we are working very hard, and I know there's much more to come.
There was a recent report just released about the Philadelphia Tax Reform Commission that called for eliminating the business income and receipts tax. Do you support that? And if so, what would the city do without all that tax revenue?
Right. And so one thing I'll say is I'm looking forward to reading the entire report and all the recommendations from the commission, because what we do know is that you can't continue to do the same things and expect different results. We are one of the largest big cities in the country, and we are ripe with opportunity in Philadelphia. And a part of that is investing in and looking at it as an investment for not only business, but particularly our small business community. Our small businesses are the ones that employ a lot of Philadelphia residents, particularly on our commercial corridors. And so figuring out a tax structure that is advantageous to the creation of jobs and job growth for Philadelphia, I think should be on our agenda. We shouldn't be satisfied with the status quo of folks being in low-wage jobs and not being able to advance and not being able to be a part of Philadelphia by being homeowners and or owning something or growing and scaling their business. So we do have to do something. Our tax structure is so different than a lot of other cities. And I think, we have to figure out the best way over the long term. This is not something you just get up and then flip the table and then, we have to do this incrementally over the long term and figure out the best opportunity for us to invest in business while growing jobs in the city. And so I'm looking forward to those hearings and also the recommendations that will be discussed during this upcoming budget process. But doing nothing isn't not an option. We got to do something to move our city forward.
I want to take us to Kensington.
Yes.
Do you think the mayor is making progress in the right direction when it comes to the public health crisis in Kensington?
Let me tell you something about Kensington. And I'm so proud of the Kensington caucus in City Council, led by Councilmember Lozada and Councilmember Harity, who lives in Kensington also, and Councilmembers Driscoll and Squilla. They've done a lot of wonderful work together to really advance the sort of real nitty-gritty issues that have long been plaguing Kensington. I was born and raised in Philly. My mom was from North Philly, and she used to take us to Kensington. When I was a little girl, we would go shopping at the thrift store. There used to be a thrift store there, the Salvation Army thrift store under the L. And she would get a lot of TVs and like our washing machines and stuff from down there. It was a really vibrant corridor. So that's what I know and remember about Kensington from growing up. And, it's been sad to see the trajectory over the last few years, but I do believe that there has been a concentrated focus in this administration to ensure that we are really focusing on that neighborhood and the trauma that the neighbors have been going through for so long. And I belong to a church community where we have several locations across the city and two in that area. And I will tell you, I'm down there pretty frequently, and I've seen a marked improvement. It's much cleaner. It's not where we want to be, obviously, but definitely see improvement in that area.
As a relatively young elected official in the Democratic Party, what do you think your party should be doing in this era of Trump? Should Democrats be pushing back more aggressively, ignore him as much as possible?
Doing nothing is not an option. We are in a moment in this country. We have to speak out. So many Philadelphians in particular are being impacted. The potential budget cuts alone could impact so many people, particularly Philadelphians and Pennsylvanians who are on Medicaid. We even heard in one of our hearings that our federal government employees bring $100 million in wage tax to the city. So if those individuals are let go, that's even an impact on the city. We're in a moment where we have to fight. We can't be silent. We can't be scared. You got to stand up. You got to say DEI is a thing, okay? And we have to be intentional about it. And we have minority rules in the city already in place that we're going to continue to push to support our small businesses and ensuring that everyone has a fair and equal opportunity to do business with city government. But this is not a moment to cower down in the corner and hope and pray for the best. Even in the Bible, it talks about praying, but faith without works is dead. And so we have a lot of work to do, and we're going to continue to do that work. And we cannot be scared or frightened in this moment. And that's why I'm honored that I have an opportunity to serve in this moment, because I also served under the first Trump administration. I was in council during that time. And I remember even one time Trump sharing a tweet about some of the work that we were doing here on police reform, but we still got it done.
What's different?
What's different this time is that you can tell they have a plan. It's Project 2025, and we got to fight against that.
What kind of conversations do you have with your colleagues about the time that we're in? Especially given, soon you all will be having hearings about the budget and getting that finalized.
The type of conversations we're having now is really, seeing what's happening every day. You don't know what you don't know. And that's the scary part. You don't know what you don't know until it happens.
So you're saying you can't prepare as much?
We're preparing.
Okay.
And we are prepared. Particularly from a budget perspective, I did a bill around the budget stabilization reserve, which we have much more money in our reserve than now than we did when COVID hit. So we're preparing, right? But we also have to understand the impacts of the job cuts to Philadelphia. How many federal employees, will be let go who actually live here? That's all the stuff that we're working on. The Medicare cuts. That provides, so much assistance to so many Philadelphians because of the unique position that we're in. So we're working, we're preparing, and then as things happen, we're addressing them. And we're working with our federal partners. I will tell you, I hear from Congressman Evans almost every single day, and that is no exaggeration. Almost every day we get something from their office.
That's a good thing.
That's a great thing. So we're working in an intergovernmental fashion. Even our council president convened a meeting before this new administration was sworn in with all of our government stakeholders, city council, state reps, state senators, all of our federal government partners. And we all got to sit in a round table and talk about how we needed to get prepared for this moment. So we're working and we're getting it done.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for being on CityCast Philly.
Yes, thank you so much.
That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. Listen, if you enjoyed this week's politics episode, tell a friend. Rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.